Reimagining Chapel. My name is Amanda Esco, and I am lucky enough to be the Director of Religious Education here at the First Unitarian Church of Salt Lake City. Thank you for joining us today. We wrapped up our religious education classes last week, and I was filled with nothing but joy. Watching the faces of our children and youth reminded me of our gift of community. And I am so excited that even virtually this year, we have been able to remain connected to one another in so many different ways. We've been able to be connected to each other through Zoom. We've been able to be connected to each other through Facebook, Instagram, our YouTube channel, like this right now. Being able to join together in new and inventive ways has given me a lot of joy this year. And watching the faces of people that I love made me feel hopeful. I hope that you are starting to feel hope too. Hope is in the air, friends, just as is summer. Let's start by sparking that light of hope within each of us and lighting our chalice. I have mine right here. Do you have yours? If you have one at home, go grab it right now and light it with me. I'm going to say the words from our Minister Emeritus, Reverend Tom Goldsmith. Symbol of light, symbol of knowledge, symbol of warmth, symbol of freedom. We light this chalice as a symbol of our faith. Here we gather, however we gather, to celebrate hope and the infinite possibilities of love. I have felt those possibilities of love this week. I felt those possibilities of love from people that I love within our church community reaching out to me. I felt that in our religious education classes. I felt that during our Zoom worship services. Remember, for the rest of the church year, our worship services will be on Zoom live, so you can join us and we can see each other's faces. It's been a nice change for us to be able to switch things up at the end of this year and try some different things. I hope this Sunday you're able to join us. Let's take a breath. I need to take a breath. Today, I was reminded by my friend Matt that I sometimes need to stop and breathe too. Do you ever find yourself needing to stop where you are and take a deep breath? As Reverend Monica reminded us last week, rest is important. We need to rest. So let's take a few moments of rest and breathe. If you're able, stand on up. If not, sit where you are. Be where it feels best to you. That's the important part. All right, we're gonna breathe in through our nose. I'm gonna ding my bell, and you're gonna breathe out. Are you ready? Okay, take a deep breath in through our nose. Let's do that 2 more times. Deep breath in through our nose. One last time. Deep breath in through our nose. Silence is an important part of rest. When you are silent, you are letting your body rest, you are letting your mouth rest, and I hope you're also letting your mind rest. This week for Reimagining Chapel, we are talking about the stories of courageous people. And I know that each and every one of you is also courageous. This year, we have been asked to do things that we never imagined doing. We have all risen to new lengths, new heights, to see what we could do with things that we didn't know were possible. We are all courageous. So I'm inviting you to take a second and share with the people that are around you, share the people in your home, what is happening in your world right now. I want you to share your joys and your concerns and something that makes you feel courageous. When you're done, I'll be right here waiting for you. Thank you for sharing your courageousness, your joy, and your concerns with the people that love you. Our UU of the week this week was a dear man. He was an important, courageous figure in our Unitarian Universalist history. I hope that you're able to learn a lot from him this week. This week in Reimagining Chapel, we've been talking about the stories of courageous people, and our UU of the week definitely fits that description. Courageous people often face difficult and dangerous situations that unfortunately do not always end happily, as is the case with this week's UU of the week. James Reeb was born in Kansas in 1927. He was not a healthy child and had severe vision issues that were not able to be corrected until he was in high school. Due to his father's work, the family moved throughout the South and the West. Finishing high school in Casper, Wyoming, James loved football, debate, and social justice. He saw the needs of the people in his community and wanted to create a more economically just society where no one's human rights were denied. James's family attended several different Christian churches in his youth. Every time they moved, they found a new church. By the end of high school, he was pulled with his faith and desire to create a more just world to start Presbyterian ministry. While he deeply desired to enter theological school, when James graduated in 1945, the United States was still at the tail end of World War II. James joined the Army and served in Anchorage, Alaska. After the Army, James returned home to Casper, Wyoming to attend junior college. From there, he transferred to St. Olaf College in Minnesota. James married Marie Deason on the summer of 1950. James entered Princeton Theological Seminary and was ordained in 1953. He became a hospital chaplain and began to be deeply involved in pastoral counseling. To become even more advanced, he actually enrolled in another master's program to receive a pastoral counseling degree. It was around this time that James's faith evolved. He began to see the world through a more liberal, humanist religious lens. Presbyterianism was no longer where he saw his future in the ministry. Through a series of lectures and a well-read religious education text written by Sophia Lyon-Fawes, he realized he was actually Unitarian. He resigned his Presbyterian ministry and began working with the American Unitarian Association to become ordained. James began his work right away, immediately starting to work with the economically disenfranchised in Philadelphia. When he was able, he moved with his family to Washington, D.C. to begin work at All Souls Church as an assistant minister. Never one to shy away from hard conversations, James moved his ministry outside the walls of the church to the larger community, working with outside groups to address social problems in the Washington, D.C. area. Due to his position as assistant minister, James didn't do a lot of preaching. James wanted a pulpit of his own in a racially diverse community, working towards justice and care for one another. Unfortunately, no such congregation existed. James decided to take a position in Boston at a low-income housing group. The family moved to Roxbury, a Black community in Boston. His daughter remembers him being adamant that the family could not live a segregated life and still make a difference in the lives of those that they served. The Reeb family joined the Arlington Street Church in Boston, and James met Jack Mendelson, the congregation's social activist minister. Maintaining his ministry, James joined the UUA, the Unitarian Universalist Association's Commission on Religion and Race, created by another UU of the week, Homer Jack. The country was in the throes of the 1960s civil rights movement. After a day of police brutality against 500 protesters marching from Selma to Montgomery in Alabama, the UUA received a telegram from Dr. Martin Luther King asking ministers and people of faith to join the marchers in Selma. Always one to side with justice, James had to go to Alabama against his wife's real concerns for his safety. He joined over 2,500 marchers in Selma. That evening, James had dinner with two colleagues in a predominantly black neighborhood. As they were driving home, their car was attacked by white men shouting awful racial epithets at them. While everyone in the car was injured, James received a severe blow to the head. At the time, there were no neurosurgeons in Montgomery, and an ambulance had to transfer him to Birmingham, 90 miles away. 2 days later, he died. James Reeb's death became an unfortunate lightning bolt to the movement. His funeral, held at Brown Chapel in Selma, was attended by an enormous crowd. The president of the UUA offered prayers, and Dr. King gave the eulogy, saying, quote, "He was a witness to the truth that men of different races and classes might live, eat, and work together as brothers." On the evening of the funeral, President Lyndon B. Johnson spoke to a joint session of Congress proposing the Voting Rights Act. Later that summer, after a lengthy debate and discord, the law was passed. James Reeb lived his life with an eye towards justice and faith. His memory lives on as a courageous person who gave his life for the fight for equality.
Lander, and I'm the Religious Education Assistant for the First Unitarian Church of Salt Lake City. Our theme for this Memorial Day weekend is courage. Should we see what's in the Wonder Box to help us explore this topic? It is a picture of a mabira, which is a musical instrument from Africa. I'm going to tell a story called The Lion on the Path, which was compiled from a variety of West African and South African folktales for Tapestry of Faith. It is about two cousins, a mabira, a lion, and a rabbit. I want you to think about who is showing courage in this story. Once upon a time, two cousins lived side by side in a village. They worked together in the fields each day and returned home each night to share a meal and some fun in the evening. The young woman cousin's name was Nosa. She loved to play the mabira and to sing. The young man cousin's name was Toby. He loved to dance and tell great stories. One day, Toby said to Nosa, "I have to go on a journey to the village of my future wife. I must go and meet her parents." "Oh, I will worry about you," said Nosa. "You know that you must take the long path that leads over the hills and through the swamplands. It is not as easy as the meadow path, which is shorter, but that is the way people go because a lion has often been seen on the meadow path." "Of course, my cousin, I will take the long path," he said. "I do not wish to meet any lions. I will be back before you know it." Nosa said goodbye to her cousin, and as she was waving, she called out, "Remember, when you get to the fork of the road, go left to the long path." He waved back and headed down the path. All morning, Nosa worried. She loved her cousin, but he could be a bit dreamy. Sometimes he would be thinking of a story or making up a new dance step and would forget where he was going or what time it was. The more she thought about him alone on the path, the more she worried. Finally, she started to get a bad feeling. She felt right down to her bones that something was not right. She could almost picture her cousin taking the wrong path. So she grabbed her Mabira and she ran off down the trail as fast as she could. Soon, she came to the fork in the trail, and sure enough, when she got down close to the ground, she could see Toby's footprints heading down the wrong trail, right straight into the meadow. She ran as quickly as she could, and it wasn't long before she came to a bend in the path. She hid behind a tree and peered out. There she saw her cousin standing right in the middle of the path, and there facing him was a full-grown lion, swishing its tail and getting ready to pounce. "What can I do?" she cried to herself. "I don't have any weapons. I would throw a rock, but there are no big rocks to be seen. I could throw my Mabira, but it is hollow, and it would not hurt the lion at all." Then she thought, maybe I can play my Mabira and distract the lion so that Toby can get away. Just then, Lion growled. She was so afraid that he was going to pounce on Toby that she jumped out in front of the tree and began to sing and play a song. "My Mabira plays music so pretty. My Mabira plays music so sweet. My Mabira plays music so pretty. Oh, dance to my music with me." Lion was distracted. He turned to see who was singing, and when he did, Toby ran off through the woods and all the way back home. Nosa played and sang and danced again. To Nosa's surprise and delight, Lion began to dance as she was dancing. He seemed to have forgotten completely about his prey and was dancing and singing as if under a magic spell. Nosa wanted to get away too, so she tried to back up as she swayed and danced, but when she backed up, the lion couldn't hear the music anymore, and he stopped dancing and looked around and said, "Where is that man I was going to eat? That was my dinner." So poor Nosa stepped bravely forward again and began to play and sing. That lion began to dance again and to sing as if under an enchantment. Again, Nosa tried to move away toward home, but each time she did, Lion would stop and look around for Toby. This went on for a very long time until finally she was getting so tired she could barely play any longer. Her fingers ached and her arms and hands were so tired. Her throat was so sore. But she knew that if she stopped, Lion would eat her. So she kept playing and playing until she thought she was going to die. Finally, just as Nosa was about to collapse, a little rabbit popped its head out from behind a rock. "Hey, you look like you need help." "Boy, do I ever," said she. "If I stop playing, Lion will eat me. But I'm so tired, I think I'm about to drop dead anyway." "Let me play," said Rabbit. He hopped over to Nosa and began tapping his foot, just so that he wouldn't miss a beat. And just like that, she tossed him the Mabira, and he started playing and singing and dancing in his little rabbit voice. Rabbit kept on playing, and Lion kept on dancing and singing while Nosa ran safely home. Meanwhile, Rabbit began to get tired, but he had a secret. Just behind the tree, a few feet down the path, was his home. So carefully, inch by inch, he danced closer to the hole. Lion followed him, still dancing as if under a spell. Finally, Rabbit dropped the Mabira and dove into his hole, safe and sound. There was Lion left on the path with no people to eat and a confused expression on his face. "Gee," he said, "I could have sworn there was a young man on the path, then a young woman playing the Mabira, But now there's just a Mabira on the path, and I think I just saw a rabbit jump down that hole. What a strange day. So, the two cousins got home safely. They celebrated together, and Toby thanked his cousin for saving his life. He even made her a new Mabira from a gourd he had grown. A few days later, when Toby ventured out again to that other village, he took the left fork in the path, as Nosa had told him to do, and carried Nosa's new Mabira with him, just in case. Thank you for listening to my story and joining us for this edition of the Wonder Box.
One, each person is important. Two, be kind in all you do. Three, help each other.